what was the routine? What did you just stick to your routine? Did you work out every day no matter what? Did you eat well? No, what was the idea? How did you can't sleep? How the hell are you gonna manage that?
You know, I always had confidence in myself that I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. You know, the one time when I thought, okay, I'm really in trouble here, when I got violated and they threw me in the hole,
What does that mean, violated? What does that mean?
I was on parole. And I fell into a trap. The government was really trying to get me to cooperate. I fall into a trap. They violate my parole. I didn't file my income tax or whatever. It was a stupid thing, but it was enough to get me violated. So they give me 4 years on the violation. That was the maximum they could have given me. And I spent another 3 years in jail with good time. But I spent 29 months and 7 days in solitary. They kept me in a hole, right?
Wow.
So the first night in there, I said, you know what? This time, I always had enough confidence in myself where I'll figure it out. I'll work it out. I beat 5 cases going to trial. I mean, everything. So I had a lot of confidence in what I could do. But that night I said, I'm done, man. I said, they took all my money. They whatever money I had left, they leaned my bank accounts. They went into my house, search warrant, took everything, took money out of my wife's purse and said, you don't work. This is your husband's money. We're indicting him on another racketeering case. They took everything, right? I said, man, they're going to indict me on another RICO case. You don't beat these cases with a federal defender. Trust me, I spent millions defending myself in all these damn trials. But I said, my wife, we were only married, you know, she waited for me 5 years, 13 months on parole. We had 2 little babies. I said, she's 27 years old. I'm going to lose my wife. I'm never going to see my kids. They're going to indict me on another case. They can't put me on a yard. I still got people upset with me. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in this 6x8 cell. That night I was scared. Honestly, I said, I'm out of answers. I'm out of answers. I don't know what to do. And, you know, I mean, look, I became a person of faith through that time and everything else. That's when things changed. Prison guard handed me a Bible.
That's when you started looking up. That's when you kind of like, you were brought to your knees.
Brian, a prison guard walked by my cell. He opened the flap on the door and he said to me, Franzese, you're okay. You don't look good. I said, hey, get away from me. I don't want to see any of you guys tonight. Leave me alone. And I chased him, right? Well, he came back about a minute later and he pushes a Bible through the slot on the door. That was the start of my journey.
Wow.
And 29 months and 7 days. I don't think there's anybody on earth that read their Bible, that had every book on every faith sent into me because I had my wife. I was really in a search for the truth. So I studied and studied and studied. I had a Sony Walkman. I used to listen to Pastor Greg Laurie on the phone. He and I are good friends now. And I just became a person of faith during that time. That's what sustained me. And then I started to get my confidence back again. And they couldn't indict me. They dropped the case. They tried, they couldn't. So all I had was the violation. So I knew I was coming home. But I knew I had to make the break from that life. Brian.
When Michael, when you were in there and you were searching, do you remember a moment where you said to yourself, like you almost found God? Do you remember a moment where you went, I'm gonna be okay? Was there a moment where you kind of said, you know, this sort of almost euphoric moment, or at least a moment of discovery?
I'll tell you how God was so good to me that night. Even I started reading the book of Proverbs, and you know, I grew up as a Catholic, but we didn't read the Bible. We read the Catechism.
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't even know where to begin. Yeah. So I'm holding a book, and it opens up to the book of Proverbs. I start reading it, and I said, "Wow, this guy's pretty smart." I get turned on by smart people, right? You know, you're always learning. And then I came to the verse that really impacted me. This first verse, more than anything else in my life, at a moment when I really needed it, was Proverbs 16:7. It says, when a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, even his enemies are at peace with him. And that was a night when I had nothing but enemies. I mean, people on the street, my own father was upset with me, the government was upset with me. And it was kind of like, I kind of looked in the mirror of myself and said, who the hell are you kidding? You walked away from the life, but you didn't do it for anybody. You did it for selfish reasons. You didn't do it for God. You're not a godly person. And it was almost as if to say, if God said, but if you did it for me, I can take care of your enemies. That's how I interpreted that verse.
That's right. God was a piggy bank. God was a genie. Yeah.
Exactly. And I said, okay. I said, I started to feel something differently. I didn't see a vision. I didn't hear anybody speak to me. It was all internal, but I started to feel different. And it was from that moment on that I said, okay, I got to pick myself up. And this was a couple hours after I was in. I said, I got to pick myself up. I got to figure this out. And then I went back to myself.
You know, as crazy as it sounds, that's a baptism of fire. But I've always said, I got a friend who's going through it right now. I said, look, your job is to align yourself with the highest truth you know, and if you do that, if you just have faith and you keep moving in the right direction, you will look back on this, as crazy as it sounds, and be grateful it happened to you. You'll look back and say, this thing saved me. It's not even about Jesus, whatever you want to talk. I'm just saying, sometimes if you live long enough and you lose enough, you know, especially what you spent your life building, especially what defined you, there's sort of this idea of dying twice, right? You will look back and say, you know what? As uncomfortable and tough as that was, it saved me. I'm a different person. And I look at pictures of myself when I was younger. You know what I see? A guy who walked around like he was one of God's favorites. I look at a cocky little bitch who I'd like to smack in the mouth. You know, I really would. But that's kind of what you're supposed to do. You know, and I remember I vowed about 5 years ago to never lie about anything. And it's the only way to go through life. So, and
let me give you a little more proof. Listen to this. And these things don't register until later on, right? But two and a half days before I got violated, I'm on the phone with my dad, who's out on parole again. And he says to me, you got to get back here. The family's going to war. Stop your BS. Stop this baloney. Don't betray your oath. He was really hitting on me on the phone. I said, Dad, I'm on parole. I can't even leave the state. I don't want to hear it. You figure out a way. Get yourself back here. You know, and even though my father and I were both captains at that point, but, you know, I had a lot of respect for my dad, and rightfully so in that regard. So he made me feel so bad. I was so torn. I'm saying, damn, how could I do this? I feel like a coward. I got my whole crew still back there, and I can clean this all up with people. I got to go back, right? Bryan, I'm telling you, I was thinking about, I was going to violate my parole, lie to my wife, try to jump in there, see if I can get things settled so they see I make an appearance and, hey, I'm here, and then jump back. What do you think happens? A day and a half, 2 days later, I'm walking out of a bank, 15 agents, they violate me, throw me in. Now listen to this. I get thrown in 91. I come out in 95. The Colombo War dragged on from 91 to 95. I'm in the hole the whole time.
You would have been
But here's
dead.
this.
Wow.
During that time, no, listen, 13 men were killed. 13 guys got killed. 18 guys became informants, and 63 guys went to jail. And poor Michael is in solitary confinement, saved my life.
Man, oh man, isn't that crazy? God. Yeah.
And I never thought about it until afterwards. I said, wait a second, probably the best thing that ever happened to me was being in solitary for 3 years, and I hated every minute of it. But you never know in life, Bryan.
Look, I got a 14-year-old son. And I always say to him, you know, I make him, he's got to do certain things. You know, you're gonna play sports. You're gonna wrestle in high school. You're gonna wrestle in high school. You're gonna wrestle in high school. It just builds character. There's certain things he's gonna do. And whenever he complains, I go, listen to me right now. Life is a kick in the nuts. I love you enough to be a bigger kick in the nuts. And you can hate me, but this is not a democracy. This is a monarchy until you're 18 at least. That's the way it goes. But you know. Not a lot. I love the expression, you don't make your kids safe, you make them strong. And, you know, that's how you navigate life. But you've been a great example of that, man. I didn't expect to be getting into this spiritual conversation with you, but I've heard enough of you. And, you know, I know you've told so many of the stories about the life, but I've always been interested in your mindset. I've always been interested in the survivor's mindset, a guy who did more than survive, but thrived after, you know, literally having to reinvent himself. Yeah.
Bryan, I'm going to tell you this, and I mean it. And, you know, I hate the word religion. I'm not religious. I'm a person of faith. religion is a very divisive word because people manipulate. It's just a bad thing. So I don't ever consider myself religious, but I can absolutely tell you this with 100% certainty, because there's no blueprint for walking away from that life. You know, not entering a witness protection program and being, you know, kept for years and then having a life like I did. I've been very public since day one. But I will tell you this, it's become crystal clear that if God didn't have a different plan and purpose for my life, I wouldn't be here. This isn't something that there's no blueprint. I said, okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, all going to work out. Everything's going to be great. No. You know, you look back in your life and you say, okay, this, fortunately, I came to my senses. It took a while. And I said, okay, this is no good. I got to get on a better path. I surrounded myself with the right people. And things worked out, but it wasn't my own doing. And I really try to tell people, like, I can't take credit or advantage because I don't know. I just got fortunate and started making some right decisions based upon a lot of challenges and obstacles in front of me.
Well, you're obviously a very intelligent guy. You're one of those guys I could put in a hole, which they did, and you find your way out, which you did. But when you say surround yourself with the right people, is there a criteria you look for in people? Is there something you see in somebody that causes you to dismiss them right away? How do you do that? What is your sort of, whether you know it or not, you've got a belief system around that process of decision making. Do you know what it is? Can you break that down for us?
You know, I could tell you this. I really do not like arrogance in people. It's such an immediate turnoff to me. I love confidence. I cannot stand arrogance. And there's such a big difference. And you can tell it in people right away. You know, I'm talking about people of substance. Are they arrogant? They might be arrogant and confident, but the arrogant part ruins it for me. And I don't associate with people like that. I just don't. You know, as I got older, I realized it even more. You know, I don't care how much money you got or whatever. That's a turnoff to me in a big way. And I just try to, you know, surround my people that I see just trying to live their life the right way. You want to make some money, you want to be in business, you want to live your life, you want to enjoy it. And my partners are like that, you know, my friends are like that. And you just gravitate to people like that.